Right, we're on. Jamie Beaton, welcome to the Luke Farr Show to motivate, educate, and inspire our next generation of leaders. And apologies, you're certainly
here,
one hell of a leader, but welcome to the show and thank you for joining.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Very good. So you're co-founder and CEO of Crimson Education, which is the world's leading US and UK university admission support company, which, correct me if I'm wrong here, Jamie, which is valued at 250 million US. Wow. First and foremost, where did it all start? Where did you get the hunger for it? And did you ever think way back then that it would be the monstrous company it is today?
Yeah, so this all kind of started pretty young for me, actually. Growing up, I was really exposed to my family to education as this, major thing we all aspired to. So my mum did like a MBA, law degree, commerce degree back when university was free in New Zealand. And growing up, she always instilled in me the idea that, academics were a great path to kind of opening up different career pathways. So going through high school, I always loved the academics. And then when I was 14, the game plan was to stay within New Zealand and probably do, a local degree like medicine or something like this. And then I bumped into this fellow who was the dux of my school, a guy called Ben Kornfeld. He got into Yale and he told me that I should consider applying overseas. So I went down this journey of preparing for the US application process, which is actually quite complicated. It's like 4 years rather than 1 year, lots of detail. And then after getting in, I basically had all of these different families across New Zealand wondering how they too could kind of follow in my footsteps to get into these overseas schools. And that was the genesis of Crimson. And I had no idea that it would sort of take on around the world the way it has.
Wow, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you got it accepted actually, in fact, into Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, and Cambridge. Absolutely phenomenal. Why Harvard?
So I chose Harvard. First of all, the UK, when you get admitted to a university there, your whole degree is in one particular area. So I got into Cambridge for economics, and that would have entailed 3 years of sort of nothing but economics classes. And I like my economics probably more than your average guy, but I wanted a bit of flexibility. The US, the system is a liberal arts system. So basically you can have a bit of opportunity for experimentation. I took classes in things like entrepreneurship, negotiation, finance, math, all kinds of different topics. And that really resonated with me at the time. I wanted a bit of a more flexible degree. And then also the US is kind of the beating drum of entrepreneurship, as well as, Wall Street, finance, investing, which were the two kind of career paths that I was very passionate about. And so, those three things kind of drew me to the US. And then Harvard in particular, has a quite, rock solid economics program and, is well regarded around the world. So was a bit of a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, nice. What floats your boat exactly around economics? Like, were you always naturally good at economics, or did you just have a passion and an interest towards it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I actually was only exposed to economics quite late in high school. Going through most of high school, I was doing things like biology, chemistry, physics, math, doing all the sciences, because that was always sort of explained to me as like the more challenging suite of subjects. And it wasn't until I was about 16 and I picked up economics outside of school, for fun kind of. And I was self-studying this exam called AS Economics. And I realized, wow, this is actually pretty cool, because for the first time I realized I could apply math to something that wasn't just, pure math or engineering. And that intersection of kind of economics, finance, business gave me this lens to understand kind of, how society worked, how the business world worked. And that just seemed a lot more interesting to me than sort of the science path I was going down. And then I started reading about, Wall Street investing, and I was pretty sold.
Yeah, you were sold. So very, very good. And at 19, you were hired by Tiger Management as the youngest ever data analyst. We worked under the supervision of Julian Robinson. I mean, what did you learn the most, Jamie, around being in the corporate world at such a young age of 19? What were some huge takeaways there for you?
Well, on my very first day, Julian asked me, what's your favorite stock right now? What do you think we should be in? And I pitched him the stock, a company, SeaWorld at the time. And he picked up the phone in front of me and purchased a big order of that stock. And so, the order size was sort of, I guess more money than I would have ever been possibly exposed to, right, in New Zealand or something. And so
for the next couple of $100 million something.
Yeah, the tens of millions. So for the next couple of weeks, I was like checking my stock app. Every tiny fluctuation was just big swings in this thing. And fortunately, the trade went well. But I guess the first thing was things are high stakes, fast paced, and people can put, big trust in you quickly if you can deliver. So I guess he, quickly showed me that, he's willing to bet on me, but I have to, know my stuff and do my research and deliver. And then probably the second thing is that, the financial markets are, sort of ferociously competitive. So folks like Julian that have risen to the top have really, mastered the arts and science, I guess, of investing. And, I was fortunate to learn a bit about his methodology and how he's been such a successful investor at Tiger for many years. And I took actually many of those learnings about what makes good business to building a business when it came to Crimson.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, we all know the adage of buy low, sell high, but I mean, let's just quickly touch on crypto for a little bit. Very volatile. I mean, what's your take on crypto? Do you see it becoming a thing? Do you think it's a sort of churn and burn stock, or do you think it's valuable to hold it for long term?
Yeah. So my views on this might not be so popular, but basically, I think that for most people,
that's why I got you on. I appreciate your honesty.
For most people investing in crypto, I think it's like sort of total crazy speculation, like buying a lottery ticket or going to a casino and betting on black. Basically, there is broadly this adoption trend in crypto, right, where people seem to be embracing it more. It's used for more payments. I saw Visa recently handled quite a significant transaction volume. Sharesies, Revolut, these guys are opening different, I think, crypto offerings. So, there seems to be growing adoption, but I think as far as sort of like speculating on what one of these, coins is worth, it's akin to foreign exchange trading with a lot more risk. Foreign exchange trading is notoriously an area where people get excited to trade, day traders and stuff, because if they see these candlesticks, funky graphs, charts, they think this is exciting and they can trade it during the day. But actually, the vast majority of foreign exchange traders actually lose money on these trades. And I think crypto is perhaps even worse because the volatile swings are so high. So I think people just get really pumped when they're making money and they don't know why or how. And they feel like a bit of a legend. But, the key thing you want to ask yourself is like, why is this thing going up? How are you able to predict it? What's your thesis? When would you get out? And the thing with crypto is it's very hard to think about any of those things. So it is a bit of a, a blind bet. So I'm not convinced it necessarily needs to be part of like a diversified portfolio yet. But, I think, people have done well in it and seems to be at least getting people interested in investing, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Why do you think Elon Musk put so much money into it? Do you think he's just doing a pump and dump scenario, or?
Yeah, I was actually reading some filings. I think he's taken a bit of a loss in that Bitcoin bet. He bought 1.5 billion, if I remember correctly, in Tesla, and then I think it's down quite a bit from his position. But he's a bit of like the Bitcoin whisperer or the Dogecoin whisperer, if I understand correctly, where whenever he posts on Twitter and stuff, he gets a lot of momentum behind these assets. So I think probably he loves the media exposure probably to his Bitcoin trades. And there probably is a role for Bitcoin, and he feels like his endorsement is going to move it forwards. So he probably can actually make the value of it jump quite quickly. But I think even for him, it's pretty speculative, and I don't know if he's happy with the loss he's taken on his Bitcoin position right now.
Yeah, good insights in. I'm sure 1.5 billion term is probably about, I don't know,
maybe, it's like a McDonald's hamburger.
Maybe $50 to me and $1 million to you. It's all relative, isn't it? Jamie, you were awarded a Rhodes Scholarship for the University of Oxford, where you're now completing a DPhil in public policy. For the youth out there that don't know literally what public policy means, can you just sort of run us through a layman's term definition, and then also a little bit further about what your topics are covering exactly with that?
Yeah, sure. So public policy is all about essentially what the government does to drive different actions they want in society. So let's say you want to, lower housing prices in Auckland. Public policy would be what are the different techniques the government uses to make that happen. Another example, let's say you want to, improve living standards. You might do things like raising minimum wage. That would be a kind of public policy strategy. So public policy is really looking at, what you can do to improve certain things in society, often through government. Now, particularly, I'm looking at a topic, online schooling, and specifically what drives student outcomes and student satisfaction in online schooling. Now, this is pre-COVID, so before sort of everyone was actually in online schools temporarily. I was checking out a lot of the established players across the US, for which this has been happening for about 20 years and quite a growing trend. And looking at, for what kind of kids are choosing these schools, why, how their academic outcomes, that kind of thing. And then I've been running some different experiments within Crimson as well, testing different hypotheses. And so hopefully.
Sorry to interrupt you there. What type of hypotheses are you testing exactly?
Yeah, sure. So the main one I'm testing is, can you use psychometrics to match students and tutors and then improve the outcomes? So psychometrics is like a personality test. So if I give you a personality test and you're a Crimson tutor, and I take a personality test and I'm a Crimson student, and then we get matched based on some algorithm,
Jamie, you would not want me as a Crimson tutor, but thank you.
But yeah, so let's say, for example, like you're really extroverted, I'm very introverted, something like this. Maybe that compatibility will improve our tutoring sessions. So that kind of gives you a sense of like the flavor of one of the tests. And other kind of things have been run on. Does that kind of personality matching improve academic outcomes? Does it improve your enjoyment as a student of the experience? Things like this. So I'm looking at different ways you can make kind of the online learning environment more effective, essentially.
Right. In terms of those personality tests, I've always wondered, like, what is your take on the actual efficacy of that? I mean, I know there's many out there. There's the Myers-Briggs. There's, I mean, don't quite remember. There's another one there that literally give you 5 letters at the end. I think you can be an EVP or an.
Yep.
But what is, like, based on their questions that they're asking you, is like, what's your take on whether or not these are effective and worthwhile for essentially you matching the right personality trait to the right student?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. So I would say a lot of psychometric tests probably aren't so useful, but a good psychometric test, essentially, you've got to run the test on a bunch of people, see the findings, test it on other people, and see if those findings are consistent. A good psychometric test, if you take it today and then you take it in a year, it should say the same thing about you probably. That's called stability. And so there are various criteria that define a good psychometric test. So Myers-Briggs is very popular. A lot of psychologists will sort of bag on it, but it's gotten some pretty good critical acclaim. The other one is Hexaco, which is the one I use. So Hexaco basically has 6 traits like extroversion, emotionality, honesty, humility, traits like this. So there's 6 dimensions and 32 subdimensions, which basically are like decompositions of each of these traits. And so if you do this test, it takes you about sort of 30 minutes, and then you get ranked across this wide variety of traits. And so that's proven to be a pretty effective psychometric test. It builds on quite a famous one called the Big 5 assessment, which I think you were potentially alluding to before.
Oh, yeah, that's the one. Yep, very good. And so what are you? Are you extrovert, introvert, or omnivert?
I probably skew a bit extroverted these days, although I think I've gotten a bit more extroverted as I got older. But probably and I think Crimson sort of made me a little bit more extroverted too. So I would say I was never introverted, but I was probably closer to the middle until recently.
Yeah, very good.
Clearly
extroverted,
right?
Let's drill in a little bit as you being the CEO of Crimson Education. I mean, you helm a company dedicated to literally leveling the playing field in world-leading university admissions. The world's most successful college admission company, to be fair, and Crimson boasts an annual global student body, and correct me if I'm wrong here, of 2,000 students who might be up that now, but increase, sorry, rather, but who are mentored and tutored by over 2,400 admission experts who themselves have actually graduated from the best universities. So obviously that makes sense, right? The tutor is obviously experienced everything amongst these universities that the student is applying to go into, across Stanford, MIT, Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, the best universities. I mean, in your opinion, Jamie, I know that's very long-winded there, sorry about that, but why do you feel university is so important?
Yeah, so I actually don't think university is all that important in general, and I think
well, you're in the wrong game.
No, I'm definitely in the right game, but let me explain. So the world's top universities, schools like Harvard, Stanford, etc., schools are basically highly selective. They have a lot of really valuable traits. The first is that everyone you meet tends to be very inspiring students who can be amazing network peers, friends for you as well. Professors are really world class, and many firms come and recruit you on campus. So our alumni are now working at places like Google, Goldman Sachs, McKinsey. They're creating their own companies. Really awesome things. So there's a small portion of universities in the world, probably about 80, that have those characteristics. Then there's thousands of other ones that don't really add that much value. And I think over time we'll be kind of outcompeted by online degrees from these top tier schools, things like coding boot camps to give you very specific skills quickly. And so, I think that the sort of tertiary education space will evolve. So basically you'll have, more dominant kind of global universities that have online and offline degrees. And then this long tail of kind of like your local university program just sort of exists because it's physically close to a bunch of people that will kind of slowly be outcompeted. So I'm definitely a strong believer in the value of these top programs. And every year you see the number of kids applying to them continue to grow and grow, and the graduating salaries, do very well for these kids. But I think there's a long tail of pretty questionable university degrees, which we don't send students to. So I would say it's sort of a tale of two worlds in the university environment.
Fantastic. Yeah, great insights. Let's just take sort of like the likes of Facebook, Google, and let's take Goldman Sachs, for example. What are their applicant? How many applicants are those three companies getting per year? Just to put it in context. Approximately.
That's a good question. I know Google admits about 0.3% of people that apply. They probably have. Oh. Yeah, they probably have more than. I would imagine Google has more than like 500,000 applicants a year around the world across all the offices. I would imagine Facebook would be a bit less, but still pretty high, like maybe 300K. But what I can say is, yeah, it's highly selective as far as who gets in, and it skews enormously to people from quite, I guess, top tier computer science programs, things like this, where they've got a lot of comfort in the training of that program. So, for example, I don't know many people from, some of the local universities in ANZ that have gone on to work for, say, Facebook software engineering. But I probably know 30 or 40 that have gone from these US niche programs into these, companies. So basically how I think about it is highly selective, but one of the best ways to get in is to, grind in high school, get into a top school, and then use that as a leapfrog into that job. And it's not to say working at Facebook and Google is, the greatest thing to do, but it's definitely good.
The holy grail.
Well compensated and stuff. Yeah.
Do they pay well, Jamie? The likes of Google and Facebook.
Yeah,
so let's give an indication. So let's take a software developer at Facebook, an internship. What are you starting on? 70K US, more, or?
Yeah. Okay. So a first year software engineer at Facebook. So one of our Crimson kids now in the US. Will be on about 130 to 140,000 USD. That's the cash, and then they'll have a stock component, which can be about another 50,000 or so of stock a year. So ballpark, some of these guys are on 150 to 200K USD when they're 22, 23. Which is pretty punchy because that's like the CEO.
Pretty punchy. Are they doing smart things with their money, you think, or hopefully?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say so. So Google's even more intense. So we've got kids that go work for their teams like Google DeepMind, which is their artificial intelligence labs. I have 24, 25-year-olds that are on about 250,000 USD, which is, pretty high. And so now Google and Facebook, they're in a bit of an arms race against one another in artificial intelligence to kind of hoover up all of the top talent, because both of them see kind of being at the forefront of this innovation is critical. So there's great AI innovation happening in things like Stanford and Caltech, but actually a lot of this great innovation is happening at Facebook and Google because they've got these huge data sets. So they are willing to just throw money at talented STEM folks that can contribute to this problem, because on the other end, the companies are very profitable and trying to make sure they don't get disrupted for the next frontier. So I think that's kind of why the prices are bid up so much. The other factor is in a place like Silicon Valley, New Zealand, we see some of these, media headlines of companies raising capital. In the US and Silicon Valley, these places, there's so much money being chucked at, great ideas that the cost of an engineer gets bid up enormously. And that's partially because of all of this like venture capital money flying around. So these factors make for, a good environment for, a young Crimson student to, sell their talent to the market.
Makes sense. Great insights there. I want to talk a little bit now around sort of what motivates and drives you essentially. I mean, growing up, did you just have this insatiable desire and just burning passion to absolutely just be the top of your game? Like, where did that come from? Obviously, you were born smart on a biological level, but like let's talk about work ethic and drive. Like, where did that come from? Did that stem through the parents, or what really makes you tick, Jamie?
Yeah, interesting. So I would say my mum's influence there on the work ethic was definitely very strong. So like growing up, she raised me, single mother, building a company from scratch. She'd gone through a pretty messy divorce, and basically she was trying to build her company and raise me, train me up in the academics. I was going to her staff meetings. She was, sitting in Wendy's with me, training me on different, academic subjects, taking me to tutoring every Saturday and Sunday. So I would see her basically working ferociously throughout the week, but always being there for me as a mum. And that balance was, pretty impressive. And so I guess growing up, I always felt, wow, like if my mum can put in all this effort, I can probably do some studying and, carry my kind of weight. So I'd say in the early years, probably it was quite a lot of inspiration from following her and the expectations she set for me. Like, for example, a funny story, when I was about 5, she took me to this tuition academy in Takaranga in Auckland, and there was about 200 Chinese students and me. Basically all these kids had sort of recently, I think, moved over from places like China, or that, immigrated in the last couple of years. And it just wasn't that normal for, Caucasian Kiwis to be doing tutoring at the age of 5. But, she really normalized that kind of academic achievement for me. So that was pretty foundational there. And then as I started going through school, there were all kinds of different academics and exams and competitions. And I started to view academics like sort of an athlete would view their sport. And so I would, really try and compete to win things like ducks or subject prizes and challenge myself to be top of my game within my school. And then as I got
sorry to stop you there, but what made you so hungry about these competitions? Like, obviously, like growing up, you knew you were versed and very skilled and good at this, but what kept you just chasing? Was it like have you got a competitive nature? Do you have a big desire to win?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say 2 things. First of all, I really love like just learning for learning's sake. So these days I do various academic programs really to just, soak up some more knowledge, get exposure to more areas. So I do just really enjoy the satisfaction of, growing, my mind and kind of working knowledge. That's definitely good fun. Also, I do have a competitive streak for sure, and everyone at Crimson would tell you that for sure. So I think it was a bit of a combination of sort of the extrinsic on the competition side and the intrinsic, and that I just love what I did. And I was getting sort of positive reinforcement as I, went through the different years, and school was going well. And I think that kind of kept me pumping through some of the harder times as well. And then as I got into high school, I realized actually all this work that I've been doing actually can build towards a US college profile, and I can turn that into one of these great undergraduate degrees. So then I had the structure to kind of pursue, quickly, and that kind of kept me going. And now I just really enjoy what we're building at Crimson. I still have a competitive streak, but I just love learning and think that the more we can support kids in all these different countries with a radically better education offering than what exists today, more kids can have a fun journey that I did in my journey from kind of Auckland to the US. So that's sort of a bit of my wiring.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did your parents always expect a lot from you growing up, or what was that dynamic like?
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's a viral book in the US by this professor called Amy Chua, which is called Battle Hymns of the Tiger Mother, and it talks about this lady who raised her kids in a pretty intense way, and both got into Harvard. One got into Yale Law School, one got into Harvard Law School, and it was sort of this very controversial hit because she put a lot of pressure on her children. Now, a lot of parents would ask my mum at our Crimson talks and stuff, was she like that? And she really wasn't actually. So she was much more on the side of fostering that intrinsic passion, supporting me, giving that emotional support throughout school. And so if you think about sort of like your stereotypical athlete, and you have people in their corner that keep them in this high performance state, that kind of was the role my mum played for me. So I would say she had high expectations, but she didn't really push me, and she wasn't the one sort of dragging me to do these different things.
Yeah, very good. Good insights. I've got a little quote here that I'd like to read out, and I'd just like to get your take on it, because last time I checked, you're fairly smart. So I'd just like to get your feedback. But so, a fool's brain digests philosophy into folly, science into superstition, and art into pedantry. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's pretty insightful, because I find there's an interesting effect where if you give the same person, say take the book Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, okay? You give this book to 10 people. Some people will say, well, that was a bit boring. Others will say, kind of interesting. But then some people will say, wow, that was so insightful. And so I think part of the skill is extracting the maximum information and insight from a series of thinkings or principles. And so, often some of the stronger academic students we see at Crimson, they will be reading the same text as everybody else, just pulling a lot more detail from it. And so as they're being fed more and more content, they're probably leveling up quicker. And so I think that quote speaks to how two people can be in the same program, learning the same kind of philosophy, same literature, whatever, but can have vastly different takeaways. And so ideally, you want to be in the camp where you're paying more attention, soaking up more of the nuance.
Yeah, very good. I'm glad I asked that question. Let's talk about time management. I know you're very busy. You've got a lot on your plate. I mean, do you have a partner, a wife, or you're single? I mean, what are some hot tips for the youth out there that really want to get the most out of their day?
I do have a partner. I live with my partner Nancy here in Sydney at the moment. We also have a little puppy called Alfie, who is quite
cool.
the troublemaker. Yeah, he's a half Chihuahua, half Papillon, and he's pretty entertaining. So I think for me, what I've realized over the years is, to perform at a high level, you've got to have, actually quite a lot of balance in different areas of your life. So you need to have, first of all, some work that ideally you're so passionate about that it doesn't feel too much like work, that really keeps you going. Obviously, that's not realistic all the time, but if you can, that's pretty good. You want to be around people in that work that really drive you and inspire you, obviously, so that you're growing through that and you don't feel too static. Then I think from a sleep perspective, you want to make sure you're getting good, healthy sleep and eating pretty well. I would say in my early years, my diet wasn't very hot, but these days I've really tightened it up a lot, and I found that's quite useful. And then, obviously a bit of exercise in particular. Lockdowns were hard, but tennis, gym, etc. And then I like to always keep like a hobby or two pretty active. So I play this game called Warhammer, which is like a strategy game that is kind of like chess, but with these different armies and stuff. So that's sort of quite cerebral, chill, like not on a screen, a bit social. And then, just spending time with family, friends, and those kind of quality relationships. So I find when you have that balance in place, you can be really effective. So the idea of someone who's just kind of like grinding 24/7 on only one pursuit and like every other aspect of their life is tucked away. It can work for a while, but I don't think it's very sustainable if you're doing it for years and years and years.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, good insights. I would imagine, based on your success and everywhere else in life, that your gaming success is probably quite up there too.
Yeah, I try my best. I do enjoy the Warhammer tournaments around Sydney and Auckland. But
do you go to the tournaments?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And I guarantee, are you on the podium? I bet you're on the podium.
Yeah, sometimes. Yep, sometimes. But
really?
Yeah, it's quite fun.
So you're across the board, so it's not just academic. Like it's like whatever you sort of put your hand to, you generally obviously seem to do quite well at it.
Yeah, maybe, but actually the trick is kind of competing in the right lanes, right? So I think there are plenty of things that I would totally suck at, such as a lot of sports, or probably many other types of business. Like I'm just doing a business today that I'm really passionate about, and this is sort of what I live and breathe. So I think a lot of people probably just need to think about what niche they want to play in, and it's a lot more fun probably in a niche that you're able to thrive in. And so I think it's not really the case that I think lots of people couldn't necessarily compete well. They're probably not in the right niche. They haven't found the right job or industry for them yet. And so it's about kind of finding that. So I think I've been a bit lucky in that, education has both been my passion growing up, and then it can become my work and business.
Yeah, nice. How would you rate your emotional intelligence out of 10? Obviously the academia brain's fine, but I mean, how would you score yourself in terms of dealing with a wide variety of people?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'd probably give myself like a 4.5. I mean,
out of what?
Out of 10. Out of 10. I maybe I'm being a bit hard. I think I've always, like, actually when I was younger, things like leadership, managing a team, etc., were not my strengths. But I would say over Crimson, we've got more than 400 staff now, and that's been a fantastic kind of like baptism by fire, where I've had to really level up at each stage and get better at working with a wide variety of people, and getting the best out of them, and building those kind of relationships. I've always had quite a wide friendship circle, so I would say I'm always working on particularly leadership, but and I would say I started from a low base, but I think I'm hopefully improving at a reasonable clip.
Yeah, very good. Good feedback there. Let's sort of wrap this up now. What's your take in the next sort of 3 to 5 years? Any big goals? Where can we expect to see you? What's on the horizon, Jamie?
Yeah, so around a year ago, we launched our online high school, the Crimson Global Academy. And I think basically, if you think about most kids in high school, most students go through high school, they're not that engaged. Some students find it good, many don't find it so exciting. And for the typical student going through school, you can only be kind of 1 year ahead at best in a certain subject. And even if you're struggling, you can't often take the time to kind of really build that out. And so you're forced to go through year to year to year. So the game plan for us is really build this global online high school, which kids can engage with part-time or full-time. So, we're not expecting everyone to leave their full-time physical schools and learn online entirely, but we think lots of students will, in certain subjects, use our school to level up their knowledge or pick up skills their school can't teach them, like computer science, for example. And so the plan for me, having built, quite a leading practice in college admissions now in university guidance, and move into the broader high school space. And so over the next several years, hopefully you should see, a larger portion of Kiwis getting an exposure to Crimson and some of the secret sauce that's made our kids successful. And so we're hoping to kind of, play a broader impact in the schooling system. So that's kind of what's in next for us, and what we're all kind of rowing towards at Team Crimson.
Yeah, that's awesome, Jamie. And where can one find that? What's the website to hit?
Just Google Crimson Global Academy.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Hey, Jamie Beaton, thank you so much. Co-founder and CEO of Crimson Education. Thank you so much for coming on the Luke Farr Show to motivate, educate, and inspire our next generation of leaders. And you are certainly leading the way in the education space. Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers. Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you. I'll just stop the record there, and then we can do a quick little debrief.